So looks like we have some people joining us. But before we get started, I'll go ahead and ask somebody to write in the chat if you could hear us. That way we know we are broadcasting live. If you're out there, please write in the chat. Let us know you could hear us so we know we are broadcasting and everybody can see us.
There's
Yeah. While we're waiting for that to happen, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Hold on a sec. Okay, I am Shantae Marquez, Profit Network Coach and Business Development for the Dog Gurus. If you're unfamiliar with the Dog Gurus, we help pet care businesses launch, grow, and profit. We also offer business consulting services and staff training programs so your staff can truly know canine body language and have the safest facility as possible, as well as a ton of other resources that will help you reach your business goals. And today I'm with Susan and Carrie. So sorry, so I used to say that.
Short hair.
Yeah, Carrie is one of our wonderful Profit Network coaches, and Susan is co-founder of the Dog Gurus. So I'll go ahead and put in the chat thedoggurus.com. That's where you can find us. And we do have people saying that they could hear us. Dude Ranch Pet Resort says, sound great. Hello, Dude Ranch. And Aaron says, yes, we can hear you. Aaron Kelly from Bay Paws in Tampa. So awesome. So before we get started, I'll just go ahead and let everybody know and invite them to come join us next week because it's going to be a huge celebration. I'm really excited about it. We are turning 10 years old July 1st, but we're going to kick it off next Wednesday on June 28th with our celebration to talk about our anniversary. We're going to have Robin's going to be joining us. Of course, Susan's going to be with us, Carrie, myself, and Sarah. So we're going to reminisce about good times, talk about lessons learned, and offer business tips for you and your business. So please come join us. And today is the first day of summer. So I think this topic's really appropriate. We're going to talk about all the safety things that you can do to prevent summer accidents that are happening. We're all really busy right now. And as we're busy and have full facilities, that's a higher increase to have some accidents. And we really want to just talk about it, give you guys some things to think about, maybe have a staff meeting with your staff. It's a good time, and go ahead and go over some of these topics. So I think there's some really basic things that you can do to teach your dogs and make sure that they know that you're caring make sure that you're caring for them well. But some basic commands that you could teach your dogs. What would you guys suggest in order just to prevent some basic accidents that could happen?
I'd go with leave it. If it's something that they don't need to get into, that's only out in the summer months, especially if it's a plant or something that could be poisonous. Anytime you can have a good recall on a dog is another great one, just so that they return to you in the event of an emergency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think if there's any dogs that are cautious about getting a leash put on them right away, that needs to be addressed, whether it's with the owner or whether it's maybe some training or enrichment sessions with the dog. But if an emergency happens in your facility, you need to be able to handle them, get them on the leash quickly without them reacting negatively. So you can keep them as safe as possible. But of course, leave it and having recall, if they're about to pick up something that they shouldn't be eating, making sure that they know, leave it. Those are some 3 basic commands that, every one of the dogs that we care for should know about in order to keep them as safe as possible. Also, just doing a nose to tail assessment. I know, Carrie, you guys would do that at your facility, and Susan, you guys did it as well. Do you want to talk about that, the nose to tail assessment?
Susan, you want to talk about what you did at Urban Tails, sorry.
Yeah. We were eventually all indoor, but as part of the Dog Gurus library, we, for summer safety, did create the safety check, that using the recall when dogs are just outside, kind of doing that nose to tail check just to make sure there wasn't any signs of heat stress or anything. And so, you get the dog to you, you're looking to see if their eyes are still clear. Are they even just recognizing that you're calling them? If they don't, and they usually do, that would be the first sign there could be something going on related to heat stress. And then you're just kind of putting hands on and just making sure that there's, not anything that's changed in the coat or the skin. The ears are clear. Just a real quick checking, paws, just, real quick hands on the dog to make sure there's nothing unusual going on.
Yeah, and I think it's just really smart that as they're checking into your facility to go ahead and do that, because sometimes the owners don't even realize that there's something going on with their pet. And, it's just a really good opportunity as they check in to address it right then and there and find out what was going on, if they even knew about it. But it's a really good way to prevent any possible health issues that you were unaware of. It's a good way to know about them. Another good thing I think to do is just do a regular check of your first aid supplies. And, honestly, I think that you need to go through those first aid supplies every 6 months. Things expire and things go bad. Like they could go bad just from moisture or just from, the air. Oh, it looks like we lost Susan. Maybe she's having some internet issues. It could be stormy or something. Who knows? But having first aid kit and supplies and checking that every 6 months to make sure they're all up to date and that they're full with the products you need. Yeah. And then, of course, with the summer time.
Sorry. I was just going to add to. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was just going to add on the first aid kit side. We used to see a lot more injuries to like the leather on paws during the summer because of changing in surfaces. So even if you have, whether it's epoxy paint on a concrete floor inside, or if you have rubber flooring, but then you have turf on the outside, when it's warmer and that turf can get hot, that's when we see a lot more of those injuries to those paw pads. So we had a lot of the vet wrap just, in place in our vet first aid kits so that we were able to address those right away, just so the dog didn't continue to irritate those paw pads.
Absolutely. That's a really good tip. I know that we had some ointment or some salve for the dogs because, of course, the dogs that love to come to daycare are constantly running and sliding and they're messing up their paws. And we don't want them to hurt themselves and make things worse for their little paws. So, Susan, you're back. Welcome. Internet, is it stormy out where you're at?
No.
Oh, it's just internet.
Just internet.
Okay. So another thing that I just wanted to talk about was hydration. I mean, that seems like an obvious thing to be aware of in these high temperatures that we're experiencing, at least in Texas here, we're experiencing triple digits right now. But looking at the color of their urine, it's similar to us. The darker the urine that is, that means that you or the dog is dehydrated. And I would say we want to be aware of hydration, not only for your pets, but for your staff as well. Mm-hmm. We had like water, the Sparklets water service all around the facilities. The staff always had it available. One of the things that they would do is they'd give those little cups. And of course, the staff would leave them all over the place. And so what I decided to do is to buy everybody nice water bottles. So they stopped leaving those little cups everywhere. Yeah. But I know that, Carrie, you have some information about kiddie pools. I know a lot of people use kiddie pools at their facilities. And this is a really sad story, but there is some dangerous things that can happen with the kiddie pools.
It's a story that I have heard more than once, but yeah, if you have kiddie pools and you empty them and, a lot of people will tip them up against a wall or up against a fence when they're not in use, it's very easy for those to blow over unless they are secured somehow. There was a dog, an English bulldog in Florida. They got caught underneath one and it died of heat exhaustion. Recently, there was a little French bulldog that caught on one in the upper East Coast. So anytime there's a situation like that, it's a perfect time to kind of stop and reflect on what your procedures are. But it's very easy to drill a hole in kind of the round edge on those kiddie pools and put a carabiner there and then clip that to something so it's holding it upright and that there's not that ability for the pool to fall over and potentially cover a dog. So, and the side of that too is that making sure that your staff are checking that, that they are doing some sort of nose count for, the number of dogs that are in the yard. And if they only see 8 dogs and they should have 9, where is that dog? And immediately start looking. So.
Yeah, that's really sad and unfortunate. And I love some dogs like to push things around and maybe nuzzle their way underneath there. But definitely, I think the carabiner clip is a really good piece of advice to offer them. And then another thing that I wasn't really aware about until recently, but water intoxication. And that's a real serious problem that I think most people aren't aware of. And Susan, I know you have if you want to just explain what that is to the audience.
Yeah, water intoxication is when dogs can be playing in water and actually consume more water than they should, which ends up lowering their sodium, and then their cells expand and it can cause immediate death. And so this can happen with a dog, playing in a lake, but also in sprinklers, or I've seen people play with hoses with dogs, and you just have to really be careful and to watch them. Some of the signs or symptoms are lethargy, vomiting, stumbling or staggering around, drooling, restless, difficulty breathing. And this is an immediate emergency if you see any of those signs in dogs in your care that have been around water. Too much water can be definitely a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, when I first heard about this situation, I'm like, are the dogs over drinking? But that's not how it happens. Basically, if they're playing with a hose, they're drinking, the water is going down their throat. Or if they're like a retriever and they love to go catch a ball in the lake, well, if their mouth is really open and they're swimming through the lake, all that water can get in their system. And if you don't take frequent breaks with a dog playing like that and allow them to urinate or just slow down, that can easily happen. So one good tip that I read is if you're going to play with them in the water, play with a Frisbee, because the Frisbee's flat or something flat and their mouth is going to be closed more. And that way the chance of them digesting too much water is less likely. So,
Shante, I think this would be a great service for pet resorts to share with their clients this time of year, especially if they are by, lakes or bodies of water where people play with their dogs. You guys know I go to the beach a lot, and this kind of came up when I was there with some other pet care pros, and we were watching somebody that was playing fetch in the surf with the dog for a long time, and one of them said, "Oh my gosh, I'm concerned now. They've played so long that it could be water toxicity," because I think we haven't heard of this, and we're pet care pros. A lot of pet parents haven't either. So I think this is a great thing just to let people be aware of your clients, because you could save a life of one of the pets that's important to you.
I think also in the case of on a beach that's a body of salt water, that sodium that they are drinking in with salt water has got to be worse than if they were doing it in freshwater lakes.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm. Yeah. So be mindful what you play with them or what you see people playing with them. If it's a large stick or a big ball, better thing is something flat. My golden retriever loves to go, catch stuff in the water and play in the water. He's funny because he's a golden retriever, but he actually doesn't bring the stuff back and drop it for you. He missed that part of the, genes.
of the retrieving
But
process.
he loves to carry stuff in his mouth and get as much stuff as possible in his mouth. So I don't know how I get these animals this way. So. But yeah, great information. And look, really, as Susan was saying, you got to get immediate treatment to these dogs that experience it. And what the vets are going to do is they're going to get them on IV with electrolytes and diuretics, and they're going to put them on some medication that can reduce the swelling in the brain, because that's what happens when the sodium gets reduced so low, your brain starts to swell. So the next thing we can talk about a little bit is just, generally heat stroke, and overall, what are some of the signs that you want to let people know about, and ways that you can, if you think a dog is getting too high in temperature, how can you help the dog when that happens?
I don't have notes on that one.
Okay.
I'll let Carrie take it.
Yeah.
I think that, well, one of the things when you start looking at any kind of heat stroke, you're talking about, dehydration. And so checking their gums, making sure that their gums are, responsive when you push, that you're seeing that capillary reaction, that their mouth is not tacky, that it's moist. And then, you can check their overall body temperature. But if they feel like, the panting is very high, fast paced, and their overall temperature feels really high, you can definitely cover them in a wet towel. Getting them wet with something that will cool them down You don't want to grab a towel that you've been laying on the beach, because that's probably warm from not only the temperature of the sand, but your body. So getting something that you can get wet that will be cool quickly. And that goes to, this is another pet peeve of mine, is that people who leave their dogs in cars in excessive temperatures, because it takes very little time for the interior temperature of a car to raise to the point where it's, it's very toxic to the dog. So that's another thing too. There's a couple of really good videos on YouTube of a veterinarian who sits in his car with a thermostat and a timer, and he's just watching as the interior temperature is going up and describing what he's experiencing. So from a human perspective, it's a great educational tool for pet parents to understand. So, I mean, even where I live, we do not have extreme summer heat, but it doesn't take much in a car for the temperature to rise enough that it's uncomfortable for a dog. So,
yeah. And I know that you can, another way to check the dehydration level is just pinching their skin and seeing how quickly it goes back down to normal. If it takes a while and it sticks up there for a longer time, then that means that they're dehydrated.
Right.
But yeah, good advice. And then, just now that we're talking about heat stroke, let's also talk about the pavement. And I know as pet care pros that we are, like, we're aware of this, but you guys probably have had a lot of new staff come in, and maybe your newer staff is not aware of this, but the temperature gets really hot for their little paws. And if it's over 86 degrees, the asphalt temperature can register at 135 degrees.
Oh.
Yeah, it's quite drastic. And I know that the dogs, they can kind of get used to it, but here's a little test that they suggested, that if you can place your hand on the pavement for 10 seconds and it's not too hot, then it's okay for the dogs to go out there. But if it's too hot and you have to pull your hand away, then you got to consider another, wait till it cools down, the sun's not shining on the pavement, or, wet it down or something. My facility was in Los Angeles and the city, and unfortunately we didn't have grass. So we were very aware of this issue, but we had sun sails that went up all over our outdoor play areas and over the artificial grass, because that artificial grass heats up. It is really hot. It's plastic. So we would wet it down, or we just adjusted our play times to be when it wasn't as hot. But
Playtimes probably will need to be shorter, and you really have to watch Carrie's favorite breeds, the
short, French bulldogs, brachycephalic dogs.
Yeah, because they cannot cool themselves, and so they are going to experience heat stress much quicker than other dogs and breeds. And so I would have a different rotation schedule for those dogs versus others. You have to pay extra close attention to them.
Definitely. One of the things that's a tell-all for brachycephalic dogs, so whether English bulldogs, French bulldogs, boxers, even, pit bull or, pit mixed breeds, is that when they get that kind of spatula tongue, so that their tongue is out and it's really wide as they're panting, that is so that they can create the largest space possible in the back of their throat. So when they're at that point and their tongue is way out, I mean, they really need to cool off really quickly.
Yeah. One of the things that we would do just to make sure is just having just sprinklers that, there's these little ones that, like, kids can play in. They don't put out a lot of water, but we'd have those running just to keep it nice and cool and help the dogs out. So there's all sorts of things that you can do to ensure it, but just making sure that your staff is aware, I think is really important. And
heat charts. And, being in Houston, you can't just look at temp, you also have to look at humidity percentages. And so I think, the Dog Gurus membership does have, the heat and cooling charts, as well as Pet Guru College members. Those are really important to note, and probably have somebody that's in charge of noting what is the heat and humidity today. So what is safe for both, pets and people, as far as how long they can be outside.
Yeah. And the other thing is to note too, if you have any dogs with special needs, if you have any dog with heart conditions, where excessive panting could potentially, put their heart into an arrhythmia or something, you want to definitely be sure that you're, monitoring those dogs that may have health issues or special needs. The other thing, Shantae, I was thinking of is several resorts that I know of in areas that have, warm weather throughout the year, have those misters in their yard that that shoot that mist out, that just to help keep it warm or keep it cool down. So that's another option for keeping the temperatures down in your outdoor areas. But
Yeah, Richard wants to put that on our porch, actually. But yeah, Susan mentioned our membership, so I did put up some links to that. If you get a membership, it's only $39 to join, and you get access to our library of a ton of resources, lunch and learns, things like that. So it's a great deal to look at. But if you want to learn more about it, I went ahead and put it in the chat as well. And 4th of July is coming up. So I'm sure that everybody is getting full if they're not already booked up. But, there was a lot of fireworks in downtown Long Beach that we had to deal with. So we came up with a calming package for our dogs. And in the calming package, we offered some CBD ointment that we could give the pets, as well as some CBD treats, and as well as the DAP. It was like pheromones for the dogs that we'd put on their bedding to help them just ease. And of course, we always had music playing overnight, but we tried to offer them something additional to help them calm down and not get so worked up about the fireworks. Did you guys do anything special to help kind of lessen that issue?
Yeah, we kind of followed the same thing. We would do some lavender spray in the air, some aromatherapy. And for some dogs, the thunder shirts help with fireworks. Some dogs, they don't. But definitely knowing which ones had the phobia. And then that's where it's also important, where I was glad we were all indoor. But if you have a, like late night potty walk and fireworks start early and you have a dog that's really scared, I would have them leashed just to make sure that the fireworks didn't scare them to escape. So.
And Carrie, you and I were talking earlier, but you had a really good tip about, if you have clients where they're going to provide medication for the dogs, to make sure that you go ahead and talk to your vets early, make sure they talk to the vets early instead of waiting till the day before that they're about to, check in with you guys.
Yeah. So whether they're going to lodge with you and they need, whether it's, trazodone or Xanax or, one of the calming medications that vets will prescribe, or whether it's just that, that a holiday is coming up where fireworks may be included. And we would just remind our pet parents, don't wait until the day before, contact your vet a few weeks out so that they can get that prescription filled for you. The fact that there's a lot of states that have CBD products now, those are effective in some cases, but some dogs that have really severe anxiety when it comes to fireworks or even thunderstorms, having something that's more of a prescription strength medication can really help support them through that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just asked the group, I put in the chat, asked anybody if they had any questions that they wanted to ask us while we're here chatting. Is there any other topics that I missed that you want to discuss, Susan or Carrie?
When Susan was talking about the temperature charts, both the kind of the cold temperature and the hot weather temperature charts, those are very interesting to look at, because there are some areas that are kind of an average around the United States. And then you have some areas where I think of Alaska, Minnesota, the New England, really Northeast states that have colder winters. And those dogs are so used to being in colder temperatures that they actually may be able to stay out in cooler temperatures than a dog that is experiencing some cold in Texas, when you guys had that big freeze a couple of years ago. So it's very averaging in some ways. And then there's some other extremes that you can just take into account based on the geography of where you live.
Yeah.
Like for us, if it's a 70-degree day, we could have dogs with heat stroke. This is too hot.
Dude Ranch asked about the CBD as topicals. Maybe I misspoke, but I meant tincture, the CBD tincture. So you give it to them orally, and it comes in different strengths. I mean, I was in California, so you could find it everywhere. But yeah, so we had a company that we worked with, a local company, but they had treats that had the CBD in them. But we sold topical we sold the tincture, and we'd give the dosage, depending on what the owners wanted us to do and what the directions were and the size of the pet, things like that. But
they usually
kind of A precursor to CBD was Rescue Remedy, which is another
The Bach flowers.
essential oil blend. And sometimes rubbing that on the inside of the ear was as effective as like putting it in water. So you do try different natural calming products because every dog will respond to different ones. So it's great to have a big toolbox so that you can try different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes some dogs will not respond at all well to pharmaceuticals. They may have an opposite reaction, and they get more anxious rather than calm from taking a pharmaceutical. Whereas, the Bach essential flowers and those remedies, Rescue Remedy, work really well. And you could take that orally. Again, it comes with like a little eyedropper, the way the CBD tinctures do, and then they may even have that Rescue Remedy in like almost like a chapstick tube where you can spread it on like in the ears rather than just doing the oil drops.
Yeah, and if you don't know where to get that, that's actually a product that, humans take. I mean, I know a ton of people that use it for themselves, but you can just go to a natural food store and you can find it easily in the supplement section too.
Vivian says calming collars have been a huge help with pets at her with thunderstorms issue. So yeah, that's great.
Well, what exactly is a calming collar for those who may not know?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Is it maybe that they put aromatherapy on the collar?
Well, I've seen two. The original company that made Thunder shirts actually it's like for lack of a better word, it almost looks like a little strap that goes like around the nose and behind the ears, almost like a gentle leader would attach, but it hits the pressure points that are in the dog's face. And yeah, she's saying, and then I've also seen ones that are just a collar that have an infusion oil that you can put in it.
Yeah.
Just caution is to make sure to watch the dog because their the smell is so much stronger, and if it's on a collar that they can't get off,
right,
then it can be overwhelming. So sometimes putting it on like a hand towel where they could move away or closer. So go light on the ladder. You probably wouldn't even want to be able to smell it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It looks like a Seresto collar, so almost like a flea collar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So all these good. Oh, go on, Carrie. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say there is that company that makes those. They almost look like a bandana, but they're a little bit rounder. So it's like a 2-inch width all the way around the neck, and you freeze them, and you can just put that on the dog's neck to help cool them down.
Awesome. So not only is membership we talked about where you can get a lot of this information through the articles that we provide, as well as lunch and learns, but another thing that I think is a good thing to put all this information that we talked about is in your operations manual. So I know that we talk about the operations manual a lot.
Peg loves the operation manual and SOPs.
I do. But I really think it's a key to make sure that you don't have chaos in your facility.
And you have healthy pets.
Yeah.
No accidents. You don't want to call a pet parent up and say their dog had heat stress or anything worse.
Yeah. So as we're talking, I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that, because if you haven't put together your operations manual, but would like some help, we have one that's already done for you that you can. It's a PDF form where you can tailor it to your business and change it or just add to it or subtract if it doesn't fit your needs. But it's really great, and it makes a project that will take months more like a couple weeks, right? So I highly recommend that very much.
Right. Yeah, it is one of our more popular products.
Yeah, there it is.
We're happy to give you a head start on that massive project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, without me getting it from the Dog Gurus, mine wouldn't have been nearly as awesome as it is now. And it was because I was able to reference what they have, and they've, brought up subjects that I didn't think about that needed to be put in there. So it really is an already done for you product that is extremely valuable. And look, it's just going to save you months of work. So that's really the key, right? We already have enough to do, don't we?
Any shortcuts are well received.
Exactly. Oh, Bowser's Pet Training is showing us a link where we could check out Calming Collars if anybody's interested. Thank you so much, Bowser. And if nobody else has any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I'll give it a couple more seconds to see if there's another question that pops up before I do that.
You know, one thing, talking about heat stress, we think a lot about dogs being outside, but you know, in Houston, it's very humid. We actually had a dog start to have heat stress in the grooming area, even though we had like dehumidifiers going and everything. So even if you're all indoor, knowing and being aware of signs is really important. It was happy my groomers were on top of it.
Yeah. Well, it's because you're an awesome boss. So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I know it was a little bit of a heavy topic, but next week's going to be a lot of fun. So grab your glass of wine with us. Have a good time. Take a half hour off from the day and celebrate 10 years with us. That's going to be next Wednesday at 3:30. And I'll also invite you to join our Grow Your Pet Care Business Facebook group if you haven't already done so. We just have 2 rules: no selling and you must be nice. But yeah, please come join us. I went ahead and put the link in the chat and I'll put it up right now. It's an awesome group to learn and just be a part of the pet care community. Otherwise, everybody have a great rest of your day and we'll see you next week. Bye.
See y'all.
Thanks.